Right now to that press conference as city and state leaders give an update on that Harper fuel spill.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being with us. In a moment, you'll hear from Fire Chief Wallace, our state partners, including Secretary Josh Kurtz from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and Director Donahue of the Maryland Department of Environment's Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response. I also want to acknowledge that we are joined by Sally McConnell, Senior Vice President of Facilities for Johns Hopkins Health System and Johns Hopkins Medicine. I am grateful to them for their support, but also as well as Governor Moore and the entire state team that is on the ground, and of course those who are here from city government and all of our agencies. I also want to thank the folks who have assisted with wildlife rescue. The National Aquarium has been a great partner and a great resource. Coordination with the Tri-State Bird Rescue in Delaware is ongoing, and Harford County, thank you, has provided assistance through their American Kennel Club Pet Disaster Relief Resources. So I want to give you a few updates. We are now roughly 26 hours into this coordinated response. Folks have worked through the night and the day to mitigate the impact of the spill and have made significant progress in a short amount of time. This morning, we laid out where we wanted to be at this point in the process, and I'm thankful to say that we have met many of those objectives and are exactly where we need to be at this particular time. Tonight, we will strategically pause operations to further assess current progress and allow our diligent responders and contractors to regroup, also known as they need to sleep. We need the workers to be restful, and we have to be mindful that they've also been working in the heat today. In a moment, Fire Chief Wallace will lay out what a presence will look like this evening. Second, this evening, residents can expect continued road closures. Central Avenue will remain closed between Lancaster and Point Street. Again, that's Central Avenue between Lancaster and Point Street. That includes pedestrian and bicycle traffic as well. Drivers and pedestrians may encounter ongoing delays in the area as a result. And finally, once again, I want to underscore our gratitude to the women and men who have worked tirelessly to address this spill. We committed to doing this right and committed to doing it together, and that means ensuring the safety of our residents and wildlife above all else. I want to also acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilman Jermaine Jones, and you can physically see the progress. If you were here this morning, you can see that the water is no longer has that the red that you saw early this morning. We will continue to update you as we learn more. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Chief Wallace. Chief?
Good afternoon, and as I always do, Mayor Scott, thank you for being here throughout this event. Also want to thank our Governor Moore. He was here. He had his team here. They're still here for that matter. So I want to thank you both. This morning when we briefed, I kind of laid out a plan of where I thought we would be today, and I also spoke about how we were going to get there. So I'm going to update that at this point. So throughout the day, we've had 4 contract companies here on the ground working. Those companies have used 5 vacuum trucks throughout the day, and in addition, they've launched 2 boats. So we've attacked this problem from both on land and on the water. We've also carried out what we call a flushing operation. So the Baltimore City Fire Department deployed resources strategically to areas north of this location with the intent of opening hydrants and pushing the product that remained inside the storm system. We wanted to push that down. We want to do it because we want to control how that happens and not be dependent on severe weather and creating a situation that gets beyond our control. Not long after we initiated that operation this morning, we began to see the results. So we began to see the fuel pushing down. We could see the red. If you were here, you saw the harbor start to get real red again. So that's been a successful operation. While that's happening, though, we had to have contractors in place with what we call skimming capability. So they put devices on the water. That water skims, or those devices skim the surface of the water with the intent of pulling the product off of the water. It's vacuumed up into the vac truck. So that's really the process. We've had a significant change, as the mayor said, and you can see that behind us. If you were out here this morning, that water was red. Last night it was even worse. It was like wine. Today, as we stand here now, the water's beginning to return to its normal color, and instead of seeing overall red, you see small streaks of red, some sheen, patches of red. So that's very indicative of the fact that we've been able to not only isolate the product, but we've been able to remove it from the surface. We're also taking additional proactive containment approaches. So in addition to the countermeasures that you see behind us, we are also deploying what we call harbor boom to various areas around towards the Fells Point area. The reason we're doing that is we're being proactive. We know we've had a discharge of product where we stand right now. We cannot guarantee that we will not have further discharge of product if a heavy storm comes through. So we're proactively placing containment boom in the Fells Point area. In the event that there's discharge over there, we're able to capture that real quick. Finally, we're going to maintain crew presence tonight. That crew will be somewhat smaller than what's out here right now. As the mayor said, from the fire department through city agencies, through the state of Maryland, Maryland Department of the Environment, MDEM, a lot of state agencies through federal level. Our people have been working around the clock since yesterday afternoon. Many of us that are here now have been here since yesterday afternoon. So we're going to strategically reduce in size some of our workforce that's here. However, we will be maintaining a very strong presence throughout the night. So that should this situation change, we're able to react to it very quick. And then tomorrow morning, you'll see us right back out here again. We're going to continue working. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to DNR Secretary Josh Kurtz, and I'm also going to thank him. His crews have been instrumental today, as you're about to hear, but they've been a huge help to Baltimore City government, so I want to personally thank him as he steps up to the mic.
Thank you so much, Chief. And thank you so much to the local government, to our state agencies, and to our federal partners. The quick action really limited some of the impacts we were seeing with our wildlife in the area. I also want to thank the aquarium and Tri-State, as Mayor Scott said. The work that they're doing is critically important for us to protect these wildlife. Our wildlife response team has been on site since yesterday evening. We've been working to do two things. One is to move animals that have not been impacted by the spill into safe areas. We're lucky that birds are molting currently, so we're actually able to walk them into different areas. For birds that have been impacted and other wildlife, we've been rescuing them, and they are going to Tri-State. Tri-State is a certified organization that works on any sort of spill response for wildlife. They'll be cleaning the birds, reptiles, giving them health checks, and then releasing them back into their native habitats. We've had a marine unit out here today, continuing to look for any potentially impacted wildlife and rescue anything that we can. At this time, 25 birds and 3 turtles have been transported up to Tri-State. We are going to continue to have our marine unit, our wildlife response teams present. We'll continue the work of keeping animals away from the water, and if any animals do come in contact with it, we'll take necessary precaution to ensure that they're safe. At this time, I want to turn it over to Jeffrey Donahue, who is the Director of Emergency Preparedness and Response at the Maryland Department of Environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Kurtz. We've been working, teamwork effort here. Fantastic partners, city, state, local, federal counterparts, as well as through the responsible party, focusing our efforts on recovery of product. So initial efforts were to contain to the small area behind us, and now we're working to recover the product that we can. We have taken some calls over the course of the day regarding sheen. So like I said, we're focusing on recoverable product, which is like the deep pockets of red where it's heavy oil. There is some thin film residue that you'll see like behind us, silver sheen and rainbow sheen. But like I said, our efforts are focused where the bulk of the product is. So With that, I'd like to turn it back to Mayor Scott.
Thank you much. And now we will take questions.
If we could have folks step up to the mic for questions so your colleagues can capture sound. Thank you. Right here.
Is the initial leak contained? Has that leak been stopped?
Yes.
Any more indication on what caused the spill logistically? It seemed like there were some tanks overfilled, but how did that happen?
Yeah, I think we said, and you weren't here earlier, we answered this question earlier today. Right now, we are focused on this effort, the cleanup, the prevention of expanded. There will be a time where we move to that into the investigation period. We're not at that point yet, and we will definitely get to the bottom of it. But right now, we're focused on making sure this does not go further out into the harbor.
One other question on the remaining, like, sort of thin sheens you were talking about of oil on the water. My understanding is that this kind of diesel fuel can kind of evaporate on its own. Can you talk about that? What are the sort of longer-term consequences of any?
Correct. So the sheen you see, the rainbow, the silver sheen, where there's not what we call a recoverable product. It's a micron thin layer. It absolutely will evaporate with sunlight, with wind action. It will weather out, and as well as the wind and wave action. So there's a natural attenuation. We'll address that. It's unsightly, but it's not like a heavy amount of product there.
And if we could have members of the press introduce themselves with name and outlet.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Schumer. I'm with the Baltimore Sun. I'm wondering if any oil has escaped from the containment area.
Yeah, so from a recoverable standpoint, no, we're focusing on those recoverable products, and from the initial onset, as you can see, the yellow harbor boom behind us, that has been the point where the recoverable product has been contained. So everything in this area around the living classrooms marina is where the recoverable product has been isolated to.
And will Hopkins see any kinds of fines for this spill? Or anything?
So an investigation will, as the mayor had said, there'll be an investigation into that, and then there'll be a determination at that point if there's anything that would, warrant a fine for that. But there obviously is a cost to the response, which as the responsible party they're addressing.
And who will handle that investigation?
Ma'am?
So that would be the Oil and Control and MDE in the Land Department. So they're the ones who are responsible for that.
Thank you.
And okay, thank you. I'm Serena McElwain, Secretary of Maryland's Department of the Environment. Okay.
Hi, Jean Marbella with the Baltimore Sun. Do you have an estimate on what percentage is not recoverable, just despite your best efforts?
So at this time, it's really difficult to get a number on that. So we're recovering product. It's a mixture of oil and water. Even with skimming technology, it's not a 100% ratio. So best guess, we have sorbents that are recovering product. So to give you an actual number, it's extremely difficult. Through the course of time, and Chief Wallace addressed this earlier this morning, they'll take these tank trucks back, they'll put it into a tank, they'll allow it to separate out, through phase separation. They'll be able at that point get a good handle on what the thickness of the layer of the oil is in the tank, and then we can use tank measurements to determine how much product we actually recovered.
And how much liquid have you sucked out so far?
So the last number I heard was 13,000 gallons of oil-water mixture. I'm sorry, that number's been updated. So 18,000 gallons of oil-water mixture. And do you have a number on what we had in sorbents? I think the last I heard was roughly 400 gallons, captured in sorbent materials. And there's no exact science to that. We know about what a bale of sorbent is supposed to hold, so we're using best guess estimate there.
Hi, Tara Lynch, WJZ. This might be for the chief, but just with the rain tomorrow, I know that I'm sure the pre-positioning is because of that, but what can neighbors maybe expect as those storm drains continue to clear out?
Thank you for that. So we can definitely continue to expect sheen. Behind you are 3 layers of countermeasure, whether it's sheen or whole product, right, that we're putting in proactively for if and when that were to happen, that containment can begin right away. The harbor boom itself is kind of a damming mechanism, but then the hydrocarbon boom that you'll see, the white boom, that's meant to actually absorb. So what we're trying to do is, as it moves towards the block, if you will, we want to absorb as much as it gets by there. We'll try to absorb it again with a second row, and then ultimately try to block the whole thing.
And just one follow-up. I'm not sure if this is for the mayor, but historically, I mean, is this big? How big is a 2,000-gallon diesel spill into the harbor?
Listen, it's significant, right? We know it's a significant amount. I can't go into history about what oil spills we've had before. It's significant, and it's significant enough that we have organized this team that we have here to make sure that everyone's focused on this, so that we are protecting our waterway, which we know is a lifeline for the city.
Hey, one boy, come out with WYPR. I think you kind of touched on it, Fire Marshal, but I was just wondering, what is the timeline, worst case scenario and best case scenario, for cleaning all this up?
So the challenge that we have is we don't know what's underground, right? So that's why we're approaching this the way we are. We're trying to capture as much as we are. As Chief Donahue said, inside of those tanks will allow the water and the fuel to kind of stratify, and then we're going to get a better idea of exactly how much we recovered. I can't put a timeline on it, because we could go a week, 2 weeks without significant rain, and then 3 weeks from now get 2 or 3 inches of rain in an hour, as we know Baltimore's been prone to do recently, and we could start to see product again. So I think what we have to realize is, underground there's oil, right? It's attached to the sidewalls. There's still product there, and until it just has its opportunity to push out, I don't think it would be fair to really put a timeline on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We got time for about 2 more questions.
Is there a concern for the air quality in this area, and how are you going about measuring that?
Okay. Hi again, Secretary McElwain. There's not an issue with air quality. I think sometimes, and I'm glad you asked, because I think the public needs to know, there's not an air quality issue. There's an odor issue, and so that's why we really recommend that no one really comes down here and just hang out, because there is a strong smell, and depending on your health, that could be an issue. But there is not an air quality issue right now. However, we have deployed my staff. I have a couple of people here who are taking air samples. We also work with Johns Hopkins University. They are mobilizing air monitors here as well as the University of Maryland. So yes, we are monitoring.
Last call for questions.
Oh God.
My name's
Thank
Dante. I'm just a regular civilian that live in the neighborhood. I know this is home to Turtle Island. There's a lot of turtles over here, and I always see a lot of ducks over here. So the wildlife is important to me, because it's one of the many things that I enjoy about this neighborhood. What are those efforts looking like to protect the wildlife here? Because I heard you mention 3 turtles, but there are like hundreds of turtles. There's so many turtles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And so the reason we rescued those 3 turtles is we wanted to assess their health, and we had wildlife biologists on the scene. What we saw is normal activity from the turtles over there. The good thing about turtles is they actually can really sense changes in the environment, and they will move away from poor water quality. They can also get underneath things like oil. So we rescued those 3 to assess their health. They were in very good health, 2 sliders and a snapping turtle, just to make sure we had some species diversity. But the turtle population over there is already back on the island, and we do not have concerns for the turtle population.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, we've been listening to quite a wide-ranging news conference about that diesel fuel spill in the Inner Harbor area, and we heard from various branches of federal, local, and state government. And the news is, at this point, good, as good as it can be.
Yes, right now we know the initial leak has been stopped. They're saying that water is no longer all red, as you saw that hue in that image you're seeing right now. These may have been taken earlier, but they're saying that's all been pretty much cleared out. But they will have crews that are going to stay in place overnight, so that is reassuring, especially for the people in that area.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a mess for people in that area. It has created tremendous traffic backup, but so far they are treating the animals that they have found that have been impacted, and that's good. They say 23 birds and 3 turtles have been transported. You just heard, if you're listening, those 3 turtles talked about, and they're in good health, so that's good. But the water, this is older video. He said it no longer looks like wine like that. Now you're just going to see a sheen. At one point they talked about how that will dissipate and evaporate over time. They've set booms up all the way down to Fells Point to make sure that if there is any leakage, that it can be trapped as it continues to move. There were questions about the rain that's coming. We'll have to hear more about that later from Cutter. But in any case, at this point, 2,000 gallons of diesel fuel, that's a lot of diesel fuel. Yes. But they have been working for 26 hours straight. The crews are exhausted, and at this point they feel as though they can slow down somewhat this evening and that they will be able to bring it under control. Still, everybody's concerned.
Yeah, and some people were even mentioning, is air quality something they need to be concerned about, but they're saying at this time they do not think so. So stay with WJZ as we continue to bring you updates in this developing story. We'll have team coverage on the incident and the impact on the environment ahead at 5. We'll be right back.